Welcome to the Chris Hand Show. I am not Chris Hand. He is alive and well, but not here. I'm Cameron Smith. You guys typically hear me on Wednesdays on the Matt Murphy Show. I fill in around the station from time to time, and I am glad to be with you for the next several hours. We have got some treats for you. We've got the continuation of this morning's conversation about the Covenant School information. I think that is relevant. It's timely. It's something that folks are talking about. And we need to think through the implications of what's going on. We're going to then lighten the mood a little bit we're going to talk about AI and how it's not quite there. I'm not sure our doom is imminent. It's something to talk about. Then we're going to move to the Southern Baptists. They got wild on in vitro fertilization. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about whether it's going to split the pro-life coalition at a time where those of us who support life and want to rein in abortion need to be on the same page. And so I want to get to it. We'll talk a little bit about moderate machine politics, this effort to find these sort of middle-of-the-road candidates who have an appeal to everyone and in the process have an appeal to no one. There's the Best of Tennessee. We'll talk about that and sort of some of the ideas that I think are half-baked when it comes to politics. Everybody likes the idea of a very reasonable person who is a great leader and can take us to the next stage, except for when you really look at the fine print on a lot of this stuff, it's just blah, and nobody wants it. A U.S. nuclear sub popped up behind the Russians off the coast of Cuba. We should talk about that. If you want to see what an American flex looks like, the Russians decided, we're going to just do some stuff over in Cuba. Kind of, we're in your backyard. We're the big dog. And then a fast attack U.S. nuclear submarine pops up right behind them. Oh, don't worry. We're just here on routine things. Okay. Take that, Vladimir. I want to talk about a little bit about the G7 loan, $50 billion to Ukraine, leveraged on Russian assets. We'll get to some of those things, time permitting. But first, I want to give you a little bit of background, kind of what's been going on, catch you up. The blueberries have been coming in. I know you were concerned, but they're coming in. We've got Kablooey, Tiff Blue, Powder Blue, and then Pink Lemonade. And my wife made an excellent blueberry cobbler, but we had a mixture of these blue blueberries and the Pink Lemonade, which are pink. The only bad part about this cobbler was that the Pink Lemonade blueberries, when you cook them, look kind of like eyeballs. So it was tasty. It was delicious. It just looked like it was staring at me.
It's perfect timing for going right into summer, and it's like, hey, we're staring right at you.
Yeah, it
taking a bite.
It literally. So you've got rabbit eye and high bush blueberries, and these definitely looked like rabbit eyes. And that's concerning. But they were delicious, so I want to thank my wife for making those. Those were wonderful.
Those would be great at Halloween for sure.
Yes, yeah. It was weird. They jiggled even a little. It was a lot.
It's like, look the other way. I don't.
Yes,
make me feel self-conscious.
So you guys, I'm going to need some help on the next one. Please call into the Members Nutrition Super Text line or text in 615-737-9986. I've got my garden going. We're blowing and going with the tomatoes, and I've got asparagus up. I've got basil. You know, all the things growing right now. But the deer, man, they're just crushing my strawberries. They've zeroed in on the strawberries, mowing them down to the ground. It looks like when you try to pull weeds and you don't get the root and it just kind of rips off the top. That's what I'm dealing with. I've put down all kinds of stuff. I got this powdered oil, stinky stuff. Nothing's doing the trick. So I need your help. Shoot me your ideas. I think they're coming around 3 a.m. in the morning. That's the only thing I can figure because I go out there. Now they got into my beans, and they've been mowing off the top of the beans. So I like to grow stuff. My family, we grow stuff. So I'm just, keeping it real, keeping it with you guys. At D. Cameron Smith on X, hashtag TN Politics. If you want to join the conversation, I'll check it over there. As I mentioned, the Members Nutrition Super Text line. The dark times are almost over. Do you know how I know that? Because of the heat and humidity. It's coming in, and with that heat and humidity comes football season. And I want to let you know we're going to be okay, folks. I was concerned every year once we end, I guess the Super Bowl is the last big football event. Once that happens, I always wonder, is it going to come back? Is football going to make it back? And it's going to make it back, I promise. I'm very, very excited because the Nolensville Stars are rocking and rolling. We've rebranded the Panthers. So youth football, it's going to get exciting. I've seen some children of unusual size. I'm very, very, very motivated. I'm glad that y'all seem to be motivated. Whenever I come on, I hear about the Franklin Cowboys. I hear about the Blackman Blaze. And I'm telling you, I'm going to miss you guys this year. I'm going to miss you guys because we moved over to TISA, which is a new league for Nolensville. But we get our rivals back. The Brentwood Blaze. I got the Clarksville Screaming Eagles, the Doniston Hermitage Warriors, the Gallatin Green Wave, Goodlettsville Trojans, the Rising Stars of Siegel, Mount Juliet Bears. We get to play them again. I'm excited about that. Lebanon Blue Devils, Hendersonville Titans, Shelby Park Jaguars, Smyrna Bulldogs, and the White House Warriors. I wanted to give all y'all notice. Nolensville's coming. We're excited. We're ready to rock. And so this is that time of year. It's something everybody gets excited about. I know college football, all that's coming, but we can make it through. I want you guys to know that. And this is the best time of year. And yes, I know a crossbow or a compound bow are great for handling deer, but that requires me being up at 3 a.m. Billy in Nashville has some ideas. Billy, what do you got? Billy?
Yes, sir. What we did for our blueberry plants that we could get 2 or 3 of them protected at a time is I went and bought a bunch of PVC pipe and some mosquito netting and put over all of them. Built pipe frames and put the netting on it, zip tied the netting to it, and put over where the birds couldn't get to them.
Yeah, we've got some good netting for the blueberries. My problem right now is I planted strawberries underneath my asparagus, and that's what the deer are trying to tear up. So I got to figure that out. You got any ideas for that?
Go to Co-op, and it's going to smell terrible when you put it out.
Okay.
But buy deer and rabbit repellent spray.
Okay.
And you got to do it about once a week, and you will dread that once a week when you're putting it on and then you're going to need to go take a shower after you do it.
well, thanks, Billy. I appreciate that. I mean, I want to get rid of them, but I don't want to have to shower.
Well, it's going to keep them away, and I mean, well, if you can stand the way you're going to smell after you get done doing it, you don't need to take a shower, but nobody else is going to want to be around you.
All right. I appreciate it, Billy. Thank you for the call. I've smelled some of that stuff, and you're probably right. Most folks, when I've been out in the garden for a long time, most folks don't want to smell me anyway, so I'm not sure that does that much. We've got Jason has actually, for the one time, I think Jason's being sarcastic, but other folks have actually said the same thing. I've got Jason said, go out to your garden every day and pee around it, which seems fair. Somebody said, 1067 said, human urine sprayed around the outside. I think I like Jason's idea better of just peeing around the garden. I think that'll probably do it. But, and I've seen and I've heard of this Irish Spring method. Sandra mentioned Irish Spring bar soap. You can chunk it, throw it in there, and that'll get them shut down. And she's picking blueberries. She even sent me a picture of her blueberries. Mint in the blueberry patch. Okay, we got a lot of ideas. Lot of guns too. Again, guys, I'm fine with the gun thing. One, it's at 3 a.m., and that would probably scare my neighbors. And two, I don't want to shoot a doe over the strawberries. I just don't want them to eat it. I mean, I don't really want to eat the doe right now. We have some great deer in the neighborhood that are just wonderful. We have one, I think it's leucistic. It's not albino because it doesn't have the pink eyes, but it's pure white. One of the prettiest deer I've ever seen. So we don't want to deal with that. I've got Steve in the borough. He's got some recommendations. What do you think, Steve?
Hey, I tell you what I did. I put radio out there, 99.7. They hear people talking and some dirty laundry.
I like it. Some dirty laundry and some dirty 99.7. That I could work with. I appreciate that, Steve.
Yeah, they'll get your scent and know people's out there.
Yeah, well, as much as I upset folks sometimes on the air, that probably do the same thing for deer, so that works for me.
Sounds good.
I appreciate it, Steve. Thank you. So, we got a bunch of ideas here. Y'all are great. You've told me it's not deer season. I know. Get a deer depredation permit. Bounce fabric softeners. Somebody suggested a claymore. Well, that's intense. I don't know how well that would do with the garden. Lindsay's told me get a dog. I have 2 dogs. I've got Dixie and Deacon. The brother and sister, I call them defectadoodles because they're supposed to be labradoodles, but the place we got them from got them crossed. So we got basically a flat coat retriever. That's Dixie with a beard. She's got a beard, so she looks weird. And then Deacon, he looks like a frat dog. He's brown and he's got all kinds of curls and everything. Not quite those curls that are like a poodle. But anyway, Dixie and Deacon, they do patrol the perimeter. And they will get after rabbits, squirrels, anything. But they are not very intimidating. They just don't get it done. And let's see, Jason said that the clippings, hair clippings, okay. Chris said no to the claymores. We can't do claymores. Okay, I've got Tony in Bellevue talking about Irish Spring. Tony, tell me about the method with the Irish Spring to get the deer away.
What it does, it's a scent that deer don't like, and I had to put it on my roses and my garden, but you got to do it every time it rains. And also your cinnamon. If you take cinnamon and go out there all over your garden there, it'll take and make the rabbits quit eating your stuff, and the deer also.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think that's a good idea. Thank you for your call. I've got Brandon in Hendersonville. He's got some ideas. Man, y'all are full of ideas. Brandon, what do you got?
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Man, I tell you what, I live in Hendersonville, and we're inundated with deer out here.
Yeah.
And my father and I, we've had tomatoes since I was a little boy. And in this day and age, this might not be the right thing to do, but he would go out every evening and pee around the garden. And I guess that scent of a human out there, and nothing's messed with our tomatoes. And our neighbors have started doing it, and they can't believe it because we used to just get torn up with deer, coming in the gardens. And now I've got about 6 people on my road that swear by it, so it's cheap.
Well, I like that, Brandon, and I think that's a great plan. Thanks for the call. I know my neighbors pretty well, so, as long as I did it at night, they probably wouldn't care too much. But then I throw some Irish Spring out there. It's like being in the shower, man. It's pretty great. We got to take a break right now. Y'all have got some great ideas. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation that we needed to start the show, but I love y'all's engagement. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Chris Hand Show, and this is Super Talk 99.7.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
All right, got a crash investigation that has shut down Old Hickory Boulevard, southbound at Hadley Avenue. And 2A supporters, you're going to want to hear what just came down from the U.S. Supreme Court at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you for all the ideas to get this deer problem under control. I like the deer. We have a good relationship until they get in the strawberries. Y'all have suggested the barbershop and hair and just dump a bunch of hair out there. I think that's probably, I think I did that last year with the dog hair, and I think that did work. I haven't done it this year.
It's like that would make sense. Them being, I don't know, dogs are more aggressive than deer, so they might be a little more amped to stay away from them.
Well, my dogs are lovers, not fighters.
I mean, as far as a deer knows.
Yeah, the deer know that. They see my dogs and are like, what are you even doing? We're so not afraid of you.
Why are you rolling around on your back in front of me? What are you doing?
Dixie, we call it Dixieing. She'll come up to people and then she literally rolls over on her back so you can scratch her belly.
What is she?
She is I called her a defectadoodle. She is a half black lab, half poodle.
All right.
And
that's great.
She's wonderful, but she also knows how to open things.
Oh,
it's been a problem.
Oh, no.
Like she can open all kinds of stuff, doors, whatever. She'll test every door in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see if they didn't click. And she'll go into the boys' room, and if there any candy, anything they've hidden in their room, she will raid it.
Gone.
She will get in drawers. She will whatever.
She is smart.
Tears it up. Yes, she is smart. Deacon's not very smart. He's not. The lights are on, but no one's home.
Right.
And so Dixie's kind of the ringleader, and then Deacon will kind of follow along very aggressively, like, yeah, why are we barking? We're barking. What are we doing? And he's special. Bless his heart.
That's great.
I got to get to David in Hendersonville. He had an idea. David, what's your idea for taking care of these deer?
Golf balls.
Golf balls?
No, mothballs.
Mothballs. I thought you said golf balls. I'm like, I'm not that good of a shot.
The Irish Spring doesn't work. I put that out there. My wife told me that last year. I had Irish Spring. My whole yard smelled like a fresh shower.
Well, hey, I like that. That's a good smell. Mothballs might make it smell like a grandma, so I don't really want my yard to smell like grandma.
It does, but it works.
Okay. I appreciate it, David. Thank you for the call. David calling from the blender. So that's cool. But David, thank you. Mothballs, good idea. Irish Spring. I think given the two smells, I'm going with Irish Spring. I think that's probably the most effective way to deal with it.
It's definitely a more enjoyable smell for sure.
Yeah, I think so. It's our golden doodle. This is from 4911. Our golden doodle eats balloons. She is apparently defective too. Yep, I think you got one.
That could back him up.
Yeah. So I actually one of the best dogs I ever had was a Goldador, golden retriever Labrador mix.
Okay.
And I bought her. Her name was Sappho, Sappho. I was a classics major. I'm a dork, okay? Leave me alone. But I bought her out of the back of a pickup truck at the Walmart parking lot in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Best dog I've ever had.
I was like, sounds like the only way to do it.
Fantastic. And she also loved balloons. And she would eat, my boys would have a water balloon fight. She'd go out into the yard and she would eat all the little pieces for no apparent reason, and then she'd poop them out.
Just a texture thing.
And so there would be a doggy poo that would have like 20 colors in it.
Yeah.
And little pieces of balloon.
Yeah.
It never hurt her somehow.
All the colors of the rainbow.
Yes, it literally looked like rainbow poo. And so, yeah, I get it. You got a defective dog too. We do our best. We do what we can. Right now, we got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
$9:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Today's supposed to be hotter and more humid than it's been all year. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. And the Supreme Court does not allow a ban on firearm bump stocks. In a decision announced this morning, the device that can make guns fire at a faster rate had been banned during the Trump administration. The Supreme Court has just tossed that out. New safety concerns for Boeing. The company saying it is investigating a new issue on some of its undelivered 787 Dreamliners. Boeing says the flaw impacted planes that have not yet been delivered and, quote, we are taking the time necessary to ensure all airplanes meet our delivery standards prior to delivery. The FAA says it is investigating and is working closely with Boeing to determine appropriate actions and to ensure an immediate fix in the production system. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, it's Chris Hand for my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Get your annual maintenance from Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Now, whether you need that annual maintenance or you need repair or even replacement, plumbing, heating, or air system, the guys that I need you to call are Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. And if you need to replace that AC, you're feeling it right now, you won't find a better value on replacement systems. Busy Bee will offer up to 12 months with no payment, no interest, with approved credit, and it'll pay in so many ways to become a member of that Beehive Club. You get 3 annual tune-ups, 1 on your heating, 1 on your cooling, 1 on your plumbing, 10% discount on all repairs, no overtime or holiday fees, and exclusive Beehive member promotions. $99 and you get all that value from my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Busy Bee's your Rude Pro partner for satisfaction guaranteed. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833. That's 615-775-7833. Online, busybeehvac.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Chris Hand on the Chris Hand Show. Tell you what we're going to do. We got some news about the Supreme Court opinion. We want to jump over there and talk about that. I want to close out this deer conversation. I think it's important, most notably for my strawberries. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down the list. I need you to go quick. Tell me what your recommendation is for keeping deer out of your garden, and we'll move on to the next caller. We're going to go real fast so we can get this done, so don't be upset. All right. We're going to start off with Bo in Mount Juliet. Bo, what you got?
Hey, for $43, go to Amazon and get you a motion-activated sprinkler. It works every time. Once they break that beam, it'll shoot them in the face or the body, and they'll be out of there, and they'll remember it forever.
I like that one. That's really good. Thank you, Bo. I like that idea, because that way I can still hang out with my deer, but they know they're unwelcome in that place. Tony, what you got?
Yes, I tell you what I put in mine. I got a chair sitting out in my garden, and I put a little stereo system out there, and I put it on the talk show, like 99.7.
Okay.
And that keeps the rabbits, it keeps the deer out of it, and I don't have to worry about it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Tony. Thank you for the call. There's a lot of people suggesting that 99.7 might scare the deer. So, it's good for your garden, bad for your deer stand, I guess.
Well, the deers are okay with crossing borders, and we're not. So, I mean.
I like that. You're thinking. All right, Tony and Pulaski. What you got, Tony?
Did you say Tony or Donnie?
Is it Donnie or Tony?
It's Donnie.
Okay. Well, what do you got?
Pulaski. It's an organic fertilizer. You can get it at Home Depot. It's Milorganite.
Milorganite? You think Milorganite will get the deer away?
It's Milorganite. I put it on my garden. It keeps the deer away.
Yeah.
But the groundhogs ate my garden up.
Okay. Well, you got to watch out for those groundhogs and the moles. The moles will get you too if you're not careful.
So deer won't come in. You put that out.
All right. Well, I'll have to do that. I think I have some in my garage. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Donnie, not Tony, Donnie. Okay. Let's get to this case real quick. Y'all can keep on the Super Talk text line 615-737-9986. Keep throwing in those ideas. And I always like it when you send me pictures of your garden. Blueberries, whatever you got. It's fun to see what you guys have. At D. Cameron Smith on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I post pictures of the garden all the time, so that's where you can see mine. Come and join the conversation over there. Okay. This is Garland v. Cargill. This is a Justice Thomas opinion. Y'all will recall this was a controversial thing, and this station talked about it, the Trump ban on bump stocks. For the uninitiated, a bump stock, it's fire, bump, and then it basically puts another one in the chamber. So it uses the action related to the pressure from your shoulder to essentially put the gun back forward and use your trigger finger so that it's really one round per, you could call it pull, but it's not your finger that's moving. It's the back of the gun that's bumping forward. And so that's actually the rationale that Justice Thomas used to strike down this ban because, and I'll quote from the case, Congress has long restricted access to machine guns, a category of firearms defined by the ability to shoot automatically more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. Semi-automatic firearms, which require shooters to re-engage the trigger for every shot, are not machine guns. This case asks whether a bump stock, an accessory for a semi-automatic rifle that allows the shooter to rapidly engage the trigger and therefore achieve a high rate of fire, converts the rifle into a machine gun. We hold that it does not and therefore affirm. So this is a big deal. The Supreme Court has been very, very consistent since the Ruin decision, that was that New York case, that a lot of these different, I call them hand-wavy things, because I don't think the bump stock is implicated in a wide range of homicides, for example. Most of the homicides were dealing with pistols, handguns. But it's a do something mindset. And I think for the Trump administration, that's what this was let's do something. And Supreme Court said no. So there you go, folks. The bump stock ban is struck down. And it's an interesting case. I'm going to read it. I'll probably write about it over at the Tennessean. And I'd love for you guys to come over there and read it. As I always do before we get into the meat of the show, I want to talk about sort of what I do so you know where I'm coming from, and there's nothing hidden, no ulterior motives. I write for the Tennessean. I'm on the editorial board there. You can read my columns. Matt usually jokes that I'm over there in conservative closet. But I also write for AL.com, based out of Alabama. You can check out my writing there. I am a partner in a media company. We've got our first movie out, actually, The Ballad of Davy Crockett. It's on Amazon. You can go check it out there to rent or buy. And then my day job is with Thanks. It's a company where we help folks grow their business with gratitude and sort of things like, if you got a client that you like, send them coffee for the week, that kind of stuff. But that's important to me that you guys know the things I do that make money, because for a long time, people have talked about, oh, well, where's the shadowy influence? Who's pulling the strings behind the scene, making who say what? And I never want to deal with that. I want people to know where my financial interests are, the things that pay me to do stuff. And there you go. Because I think it's really important that I shoot you guys straight when I write, when I talk, because I want you to know who I am and that I'm doing the right thing. When it comes to the Covenant school shooting, I think the one thing that we get lost all the time is you got to remember the victims. Evelyn Deakhouse, Hallie Scruggs, William Kinney, 9 years old, gone. Catherine Kuntz, Cindy Peak, Mike Hill were the adults. And before we have any of the conversation about all this stuff, we really, really, really need to remember that the victims matter. Their families are forever impacted by this, and I don't want to take that lightly. That doesn't mean that what the victim's family wants, any victim's family wants, matters as a matter of law, particularly when it comes to information requests. In this case, I understand why the Covenant families and other folks have an interest in the shooter's documents not going public. They don't want to relive the horror. They don't want to deal with it over and over again, and I respect and understand that. I also think there's a important argument, I don't know that it's persuasive, that what these type of shooters want that are deeply, deeply disturbed is notoriety. They want their musings and diaries and manifestos and things to come out. And when they come out, other folks think, hey, you know what? I can do the same thing and then I'll be famous. Again, I think it's important to note that. I don't know if that's enough to stop the release of this information. The information that has been leaked at this point confirms what we know. And I think it's important to realize that there's a tortured soul who did some unspeakably evil things. And there's a tendency to, when a tragedy like this happens, when stuff's really awful, to just kind of want to know, because it's not normal. It's not something that we see. And this individual didn't feel comfortable in her own skin. She was really struggling with a lot of the gender stuff, struggling with her parents. Here's a quote from one of the documents. Quote, "I hate parental views, how my mom sees me as a daughter, and she'd not bear to want to lose that daughter because a son would be the death of Audrey." And it's tragic. I should not be in this body, another entry read. Nothing on earth can save me. Never-ending pain. Religion won't save. And it's rough. This stuff's hard to read. It's hard to look through. And to see this sort of mindset. And the worst part about it is she seemed to be pretty aware. And in her final entry the day of the shooting, she referred to it as Death Day and said, hey, she was nervous and excited about what she was about to do. Quote, the day has finally come. I can't believe it's here. Don't know how I was able to get this far, but here I am. There's several times I could have been caught, especially back in the summer of 2021. And then she was dead. And I think it's even hard to just process that a person could be like this. But I do think when we have a document that's now in the hands of law enforcement, it's obviously been leaked. The fact that I'm quoting it to you means, hey, this thing's been leaked. But the bigger issue for me is there's no longer a pending investigation. There's no longer a public interest in law enforcement here. It's solely that certain folks believe that this individual shouldn't be able to speak from the grave. And I respect that, but as a matter of law, when it comes down to these things and it's in the hands of government and the government's ability to mask that and say, no, this is fairly limited. I think the public has an interest in that. And certainly the outlets that have reported this, when they get their hands on this information, Tennessee, as others, Dan has mentioned this, Brian's mentioned this, Tennessee has a very good shield law that says, hey, I got this information, I can publish this because I'm acting in my function as an information gatherer, a reporter, to talk about it. And I don't think we want the government to be able to kind of pick and choose what's appropriate for us to see. It is frustrating, but that's kind of where we are in the grand scheme of things. And I noticed Dan was talking today about psychotropic drugs, about the medication Audrey Hale was on at the time of these shootings. And I want to talk about that. But before we get into that discussion, because it's a little bit long, I want to see, Larry's called in from Clarksville about this. Larry, what are you thinking?
Cameron, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, I have been wrong more than once in my life.
Well, more than once, but not often, right?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
When, after one of these school shootings or whatever that were committed by the people going through this transgender stuff, have we not had all their damn writings out just within a few hours? And I want to know how much money Vandy is paying this judge, because they are culpable in this, because neither them nor her psychiatrist or psychotherapist reported these issues, and they've been going on for years.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about this kind of in the next segment, so I appreciate you setting that up perfectly, and thank you for the call.
All right, brother. Love you, man. Bye.
Thank you, Larry. All right, so Larry's getting to the point that I want to make, and I want to do this on the other side of the break and then in the top of the next hour, because, the deer took up a lot of our time. But how do we want those therapists to be accountable? You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Big traffic problem if you're trying to get to downtown on 24 from south of downtown. 24 westbound is backed up from 440 all the way to Bell Road due to a crash blocking the right two lanes. You've got an overturned vehicle. Then we got a crash, Highway 70 South at Saddle Ridge Court right now there in Nashville. Old Hickory, you got Old Hickory Boulevard southbound blocked at Hadley Avenue for a crash investigation. Got that bump stock Supreme Court opinion and more to tell you about at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I will say, Chris does have some great bumpers.
It's probably my favorite on the station.
Yeah, really good work by Chris Hand on the music selection. It's the music of my childhood. That's why.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chris Hand Show. He is alive and well. It is a mystery where he is. He's probably out fighting the deep state, if I had to guess.
Yeah, maybe that or keeping our border safer.
Yes, or the Uniparty, something.
Yeah.
It's all possible. Matt from Smyrna has a comment on bump stocks. I want to close that one out so we can finish the conversation about psychotropic drugs and Covenant. So I want to get to Matt real quick. Matt, tell me about bump stocks.
Well, I just think that in this, hi, Cameron, I've been meaning to call you for a while now. I think you're the only rational person on that radio station.
Well, thank you. I find the rest of the guys at least moderately rational.
Well, that's debatable.
Okay.
But the problem is, it's this problem that we're dealing with is multi-layered. And the multi-layer is really getting just so far out of control that I don't know if it's just slowly getting away from us. But, you know, I don't believe that the manifesto should have ever been released.
That's fair.
I think that the only people who should have seen that manifesto are the police, the schools, and the families affected. Because, see, now what you're going to do is you're going to dissect this, but the other people are sick, and they're going to say, okay, she got away with it this far. Let me go ahead, and it's going to. I can do.
Hey, Matt, can you do me a favor, Matt? Can you hold so that we can go to the top of the hour break, and then I'll pick up with you? Does that work?
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you. So Matt will hold. We'll come back. This is the Chris Hand Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and yeah, that is a big backup 24 westbound, basically from 440 all the way back to Bell Road. You've got the right two lanes blocked by an overturned vehicle. Full forecast in 2 minutes. The U.S. Supreme Court does not allow a ban on firearm bump stocks in a decision announced this morning. The device that can make guns fire at a faster rate was banned during the Trump administration. With more on the case, here's Brian Clark.
Private ownership of a machine gun is illegal in the U.S. That dates back to 1934's National Firearms Act. The question for the court was whether bump stocks, devices that allow for rapid fire with one trigger pull, are illegal. During April's oral argument, Justice Kavanaugh warned of a possible consequence if they were.
That's going to ensnare a lot of people who are not aware of the legal prohibition.
Bump stocks were outlawed in 2018 after they were used in the Las Vegas shooting.
Alarming new reports of safety issues at Boeing. The embattled aircraft manufacturer says it's discovered a new issue, telling the FAA some fasteners may have been improperly installed on the fuselages of their 787 Dreamliner planes. Reuters reporting sources said the issue involves incorrect tightening in more than 900 fasteners per plane, split equally between both sides of the jet's mid-body. Big freedom of speech case today in Houston, Texas, where a bankruptcy judge decides whether to liquidate the assets of broadcaster Alex Jones over his theories about the 2012 Newtown, Connecticut massacre. Jones has said he cannot afford to pay the $1.5 billion judgment won by the families of Sandy Hook victims, and he could see everything he owns auction off to settle the debt. Under Texas law, Jones would get to keep his Austin area home, valued at about $2 million. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a Guaranteed Offer and start packing.
I kind of just want to sing along.
I was like, this is my favorite opener that he has. I was like, I love Linkin Park, and so I could listen to this the whole.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
Just fired up.
Amped up. All right.
It's good.
Matt, we're going to get to you. Let's, I don't have a ton of time here because I want to move on to psychotropic drugs, but I want you to give you an opportunity to finish up. All right,
okay,
you're back,
so,
Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So all I'm saying is that the bump stocks, I just think that they're easily accessible. They will be, and then it would just.
Well, of course they are. You can buy them; they're legal.
Right. So you just there's just no guardrails, and so how many people have to get hurt by these things? I mean, if you really,
Well, I got a question for you, Matt. Let me ask this question.
Okay.
Handguns, widely accessible, perfectly legal, vast majority of homicides.
Right.
What should we do about that?
I think that we have a Second Amendment that allows us legally. I think it's been manipulated a little bit, but this is where we are. But I think that with the weapons, I think that the citizens should have the right to bear arms. But I also think that if you have to get a license. I think that you should have a license. You should be trained.
Sure, that sounds good, but what about the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? Does that implicate? Like,
okay, but here's your issue. If you have that, I don't think that the founding fathers thought that people would be getting guns at 18 and start shooting people.
No, they thought they would be getting guns at like 12 and start, hunting and using guns because that was pretty common.
Okay, but we also have to use common sense. If citizens are not going to use common sense, then things have to be amended, right?
Well, you mentioned like this show that, I'm a rational guy and that, other folks on this station might not be. How do you apply something like common sense? To say, well, if folks aren't going to use their common sense, the government should regulate. Who has common sense and how do you know?
I think the government has a very difficult job to protect its citizens.
Sure.
And this particular problem is very difficult, and there is no right answer. This is something that's not going to fit in a box.
Right, but you're saying that we need to have licensing and training, and that's fine optionally. But
okay,
how do you know who needs it?
I think everyone.
Sure, you should. I think responsible gun owners should train with the firearms they own. I agree with that.
I think that if you want a firearm, then you should be able to invest some time and energy and not just have it, I'm just 18 and I have money. If we have to have a driver's license and insurance before we get on the road, I think...
Right, but I don't have a constitutional right to a car. I have a constitutional right to a firearm.
Right, but again, since this is affecting not only you, but people and other families, I think that...
let's go back, though. Like the First Amendment, right? I have a First Amendment right, too, and what I say impacts a lot of people. It very easily could. So the impact test probably isn't a good one, right? Because if you can only have a right if it doesn't impact other people, that means you couldn't have like a lot of free speech. You couldn't do a lot of things.
You can have free speech, but you also have to be accountable for your free speech.
Sure, and people are, but the government can't come in and constrain the content of my speech. That's against the First Amendment.
Right, but you can still be accountable.
Yeah, but I don't have to have a license to talk.
Okay, but you don't need, theoretically, you don't need one, but
what if I say harmful, upsetting things that cause people to do bad things?
Just depending on what it is.
Right. So you see what I'm getting at is there's a lot of conditions and caveats here that may mean that a blanket licensing paradigm or something like that may not be effective to do the things you think it should do.
But what I'm saying is that if I turn around and I'm 18 years old and I had to put some energy and resources into getting this weapon, I could lose this weapon, right? If I do something, I wouldn't know. I put all that work into it. I'm not going to turn around and lose it. But if you know how your parents give you a car at 16 and you go out and total it and then they give you another one? But if that person had to work 4 years to save every penny to get that car, they're not tearing it up.
Yeah, but then you have somebody like Audrey Helt who planned and plotted and did a lot of these things over a long period of time. And, they're not just going out when they're 18, buying a firearm and shooting up the place. They're methodical. Yeah. So that probably wouldn't capture them, would it?
Yes, but we have 325 million people in this country. That's not the norm. That is an exception.
Right.
That's an exception. And exceptions we can't use exceptions as a base model. We're always going to have.
So we probably shouldn't use mass shootings as a baseline for gun regulation, right?
I think that everything has to keep in context.
Sure.
I don't think that military style weapons should be possessed by citizens.
Well, the military uses handguns.
I understand that. So I think that, I can do damage. I was in the military, and I was trained to shoot.
So which be specific, Matt, be specific. Which military style firearms should we not be allowed to own?
M16s.
Okay.
The kind of weapons that they see in Call of Duty. These are very accessible. And all you have to do is have money.
Should I be able to own a rocket launcher?
I saw a 203 grenade launcher in a gun store once, and the only thing that was different was a projectile. Now, I'm sorry, but if I see somebody buying that, I got to say, what are you starting? You don't need a projectile. What do you need that for?
Because it's awesome? I mean...
I'm sorry. And then, too, guess what? What happens if somebody comes into your house and robs you and takes that weapon away from you and uses it?
Well, if I use a rocket launcher on somebody robbing my house, they're not going to come back at all. I mean, it's a little weird to use a rocket launcher to defend your home, but, my point is, if it's the criminal argument, I'll never support and never buy the criminal argument of what if a criminal does an illegal thing to a law-abiding citizen and then a bad thing happens. This is we should prosecute law-abiding citizens because people steal guns from them. No, absolutely not. Will never, ever, ever support that. But I appreciate your time, Matt, and I appreciate your call. I think that these are the kind of conversations we need to have, and we need to be real clear about what we mean, because I think there's this sort of sense of reasonableness of, well, you don't need a rocket launcher. Okay, fine. But the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the idea of, well, we should just make it harder for people to do the thing that they have a constitutional right to. If you want to change the Constitution, that you have a right to do that, to try to do that. But short of that, this is what the Constitution says. And the Supreme Court has been very clear in Bruin that the contours of that are pretty limited. The ability of the state to come in and say, hey, here's what we're going to do to make you do this. The Supreme Court just said in this bump stock case, like, okay, there's a tradition of saying you can't, of banning a machine gun. Okay. But these are very, very limited. And I'm actually going to dig in here because I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I believe in the right to keep and bear arms. I don't like the fetishization of it. Like, I don't like folks that just say, oh, I love guns and I'm going to have guns all over everywhere. As a personal matter, I think gun ownership requires responsibility. You need to train on the guns that you own. You need to know how to use them well. You need to know how to service them well. You need to be able to teach your kids how to handle them properly. But I am not going to come in there and say, if you don't do the things that I think that you should do as a responsible gun owner, that you may not possess a firearm. I don't have that right to do that to you. And I think we got to be very careful when the government says, well, if you're responsible, it's fine. If you have common sense, it's fine. Because there's a lot of people that murder people with handguns that have neither common sense nor are responsible. And their right to own that gun prior to committing that violent act is protected by the Second Amendment. We've got a bunch of calls here. I'm going to try to get to one of you, and then we'll get to y'all on the other side. This is your show, so we're following you guys. We've got Kimberly in Smyrna. Kimberly, what were you thinking?
Sparta. Yes, I disagree with everything. She was saying, we were given the Second Amendment for a reason. We have that right to bear arms for a reason, okay? And especially since Joe Biden's talking about flying F-16s over our head, whatever. I don't know if you heard that comment that he made, but it was ridiculous.
Joe Biden has the nukes.
Yeah. He was talking about flying F-18s or F-16s over people. You don't need a gun. We got F-16s. I'm like, well, okay, whatever, dude. But my family are expert marksmen. They love their guns.
Sure.
They're responsible. But here's the thing that, Matt, I hope you're listening. Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Yeah.
People kill people. The guns don't kill people. And there should be red flag laws. We should really invest in that and make sure that people who shouldn't have them, like people who are on psychotropic drugs.
Sure. And we're going to talk about psychotropic drugs because I think that's something that we need to have the discussion about, because this word gets used a lot, but it covers a broad class of things. Caffeine has psychotropic impacts. Like, we need to be specific about what we're talking about there, but I think that's certainly interesting to discuss.
Yes, and something was said this morning by someone. I've been traveling from Clarksville. I'm in Cookeville now, but someone said on one of the shows, one of the guys said, well, depression medication and anxiety medications are only supposed to be temporary. Yes, for people who go through something temporary, like someone died or, something temporary, but no, for other people, if they need them, they should be on them. But other drugs are more serious. And that's what I wanted to find out is, what was that girl taking that everybody just keeps saying, she was taking all this what medication was she on? And the other thing is, I want to make a comment about that. Her brain got fried. Okay, society did it to her first, making her uncomfortable in her skin because everybody said you can be something that you're not. And then, she had a therapist. Like, that woman shouldn't even have a license. But, so I'm just wondering, what drugs was she taking? And then you combine it with all that other stuff they were giving her, hormones and stuff. They fried her brain.
Yeah, I don't know that she was on any hormone treatment. Dan had mentioned earlier that there were a number, I think, lorazepam. There were a couple, 5 or 6 that she was on that Dan had listed off.
Ooh, lorazepam, yeah, that'll knock you out.
And so, again, we'll talk about this. I really appreciate the call, and we'll follow up on this. Thanks, Kimberly, for that. That's a fair point, and we need to talk about each of these individual components because they are contributing factors. I am a firm believer, because I grew up with guns. They were all around. And I'm a firm believer that guns do not make any decisions. They exist. And that, to me, is something that is just constantly missed in the conversation. Here in the studio, I don't think Cumulus would be very excited about it, but if I had a gun on the desk in front of me, I don't, but if I did, it would sit there indefinitely until somebody acted upon it. It'll just sit there, I promise. Somebody may take it up, they may remove it, they may take it, they may do something bad with it, they may do something great, they may protect someone. The gun itself is just going to sit there. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to get into the psychotropic drugs conversation. I see you guys on the line. We can talk about this. I know y'all are passionate about the Second Amendment rights and gun ownership, so I want to be respectful and get to as many of y'all as we can. This is the Chris Hand Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
That is a 44-minute delay if you're trying to get to downtown Nashville on I-24 from Haywood Lane. It is backed up between 440 and Haywood Lane because of a crash blocking the right lane. You got a vehicle overturned there. And there is a lot of breaking news coming in right now, and it's happening here in Middle Tennessee. I'm going to tell you all about it at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Regulators. I love this. It's so good. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chris Hand Show. This is fun. I see y'all on the Superdog text line, 615-737-9986. Should I be allowed to own a gun if I take marzipan? Well, since marzipan is an almond and sugar-based confection, I think so. If a doctor is prescribing marzipan, then I'm confused.
I mean, I think it's more the fact that sugar is kind of addictive.
It is addictive. It may. Several of y'all have said that she was on lorazepam. This is Audrey Hale, and we've been talking about that. I want to hit this briefly. Psychotropic drugs. It's a scary sounding word. Where I've encountered this, just so you guys know, my family's a therapeutic foster family, and some of these kids have been through a lot of trauma, and they struggle with different mental health issues or whatever. And so some of these drugs can actually be quite helpful in regulating mood and stabilizing people. And I think it's really important that we know what we're talking about here, because basically they treat a wide range of conditions, but they affect a person's mood, behavior, perception, thoughts, and they matter, right? But we're talking about antidepressants, anti-anxiety, antipsychotics, some stimulants. They can treat all kinds of stuff, but they alter neurotransmitters in the brain to deal with these various conditions. And so they're not all created equally, right? For example, caffeine and alcohol and other things can have these impacts on you, but some of these are pretty serious, and some of them have essentially black labels. And what a black label is that's the highest safety warning. And I will tell you, for the individuals that I know that have been prescribed some of these very, very highly regulated drugs, they're not given lightly. They're not just dished out like candy. And because there are side effects, there's a lot of things that are going on there. It's not the case that they're giving psychotropic drugs, and any doctor worth their salt is not giving psychotropic drugs to somebody without pretty serious symptoms and some pretty serious diagnoses. And so I want to be real clear about that this is not something that folks are just slinging around all over the place. They're not a lot of folks want to scare you so you act irrationally and do stupid stuff. I do not want to scare you at all. In fact, I want to help you understand what's going on, because I think this is really important. Folks with underlying mental challenges, mental illness, whatever you want to call it, it could be they're bipolar. It could be they have serious depression. They have social anxiety. They have all kinds of schizophrenia. It could be a lot of things that are pretty serious, right? Some folks need some of these medications, and they're prescribed to deal with those severe things. It's not the case that they're giving it to somebody with a perfectly normal, non-diagnosed mental health profile and say, we'll try this, just see if this happens. This is for pretty serious cases. And the one thing that I've seen in the context of the individuals that have been through my home is we got to be real intentional about that. And so my wife and I have pushed back on some of those and said, wait, are you sure this is necessary? Let's make sure the diagnosis is accurate. Let's make sure we understand. I think that's something that's appropriate, and that parents who find their children struggling with various mental disorders and things like that need to do and make sure that they're getting the right diagnosis. And in our case, making sure that DCS and folks in the foster system are paying attention and not simply saying, well, this kid had some issues. Now they're forever branded this way. These need to be regularly evaluated and that sort of thing. With Audrey Hale, same thing. My question is, what would we, in hindsight, the whole point of this is we should learn something. And I want to know, and I'm going to ask this question before the break, what would we do differently with the therapist, with Vanderbilt, with the doctors that interacted with somebody like Audrey Hale? Now what we know in hindsight, what would we change? Be thinking about that. Send me your text. Let me know what you think. We'll come right back. This is the Chris Hand Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And again, heads up, drivers, you got a 35-minute delay south of Nashville trying to get to downtown. Westbound 24, the right lane is blocked right before Briley Parkway. And another crash, 65 southbound before Long Hollow Pike in Goodlettsville. Left lane is blocked there by some road work. Sorry, that's not a crash. That's just road work. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Channel 4 says a person has life-threatening injuries after a home exploded in Gallatin this morning. Images from the scene show nothing but debris is left of a structure. A natural gas leak is the presumed cause of the explosion, according to officials. Also in Middle Tennessee, there is a suggestion in a court filing by a Metro police officer that a department whistleblower is the source of this second leak of documents from Covenant school shooter Audrey Hale. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, it's Chris Hand from my friends at USS. They are your waterproofing experts, and they've been doing this kind of work in Middle Tennessee since 1994. They've been doing it for decades, and they have 25,000 satisfied customers to back them up. You gotta look for the warning signs. Maybe, it's not a massive flood coming in, but you will see warning signs if water's getting into your property. What are the warning signs? Well, you'll notice standing water in your crawl space, so I'd poke your head down there after the rain if you haven't lately. You'll notice wet basement walls, cracks in your basement floors. Those are red flags. And when you see those red flags, you got to call USS to come take a look. They'll come to your house, create a custom plan for you, and they won't leave until the work is done and you are satisfied. USS will always give their best. 615-488-7855. If you're having waterproofing issues, call USS today, 615-488-7855. United Structural Systems online, USSTN.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to...
We are back. I'm Cameron Smith. Chris is out and about doing Chris things, but he's alive. He'll be back. Talking about how should the therapist, how should we respond in these type of situations where somebody's in treatment, they commit an act of violence, like the Covenant shooter. What's the obligation there? What should the standard be? I've got Marie who wants to talk about this. Marie, what do you have?
Well, I love your show. Love you guys. You guys are class act. I'm a long-time listener. How I feel really that there was something very dark and deep going on within the house. And I think sometimes, we really need to start there, the core of, the childhood, the parents, how she's raised, the environment that she's raised in. And something that stands out to me is that in her notes that she was going, if she survived that, she was going to come home and she was going to kill her father. That just is a red flag to me. I don't want to make accusations because that's not right, but I just feel that there was really something deep-seated and dark going on in there, and I don't know if it was that the father was inappropriate with her, maybe at an early, I don't know.
Well, I think if you don't know, we should be real careful about making assertions on that kind of stuff, because there are a lot of folks that make really, really poor decisions that, it might have been bullying. It might have been a lot of different things that ultimately, when you look at the parents, I don't think Audrey Hale's parents, as best I can tell, thought they were relaying a mass killer. I don't think they thought that at all. And so I want to be real careful about implying things without knowledge. So, but I don't think you're trying to do that.
No. I just thought with her wanting to kill her dad, saying that.
Well, that's definitely a red flag. I mean, I'm going to go try to kill a bunch of people, and then I'm going to come home and kill dad. Yeah, that's a red flag.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I appreciate the call. Hindsight's 20/20 on these type of things. And it's a tough call to figure out. For example, if you're an attorney, therapist, there's a lot of folks where you have confidentiality with your clients. There's a reason for that. You want clients to tell you the truth. You want them to be able to communicate with you. For Audrey Hale's purposes, you want somebody like that to communicate with clarity, and that therapist to be able to treat and offer, whether it's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or whomever, to be able to offer good guidance and medication if warranted. So I don't know that we want to change that. We don't want a situation where we tell folks, if you tell your therapist you're really struggling or you're having homicidal or suicidal thoughts, that they should immediately go to law enforcement. Because what's going to happen there is folks that are having those thoughts will say, there's absolutely no way I'm going to talk to a therapist. And I think there's a public policy interest in those folks getting help. Because before they commit the act, if you can get them the appropriate counseling, medication, whatever, you may avert the violent act. You may be able to stop it. I can't prove something that doesn't happen, but I would imagine that there are folks that have thought about that kind of stuff, and because they got appropriate treatment, they didn't do it. And I think what we need to look at is where do we want to draw that line? And if somebody, there's sort of this cloud in the fog that comes when these type of situations happen, that if somebody's privately diarying something and writing it down for their personal use and they're keeping it in their room but not sharing it with a therapist, well, the therapist isn't accountable for that. The question is, well, what did they share? What was the level of disclosure? And did those therapists act appropriately? I think that's a fair question to ask. I'm not upset by that. But the threshold needs to be, there is an imminent act of violence that this person is telling me they're about to perpetrate. And that's then and only then should I be able to breach that confidentiality. Because if you don't give a clear standard, then you're going to have, well, I don't know whether they were serious or not. I can't imagine that most parents, and think of Joe Biden with Hunter Biden. He's still talking about he's proud of my son. He's the best man, highest character I've ever met. Well, he's a dad. He's biased. Okay? So we can see objectively Hunter Biden's made a lot of suspicious choices. Not a great dude based on the publicly available information. And yet his dad has a different perspective. Well, most parents do. I do with my kids. I love them to death. And so they are a blind spot for me where I can't be objective. And so, and not in a bad way. I don't think we want parents being like, well, you're an objective. That drawing you gave me today is objectively not very good. Your skills are underwhelming. I don't think you want parents like that. Most of us don't. So I think we've got to keep in mind that it's easy to criticize Audrey Hale's parents in this example, but they're going to look at their child as charitably as possible for them to do. And so when they're really struggling, well, did they know she was struggling to the point where she was going to take other people's lives? It seems that the answer is probably not. But again, that's where on these type of things, it's very difficult to know. So I would just encourage you to kind of think about balancing here and trying to understand what we want and what we don't want as a matter of accountability here. Because I don't necessarily believe that Vanderbilt's a sympathetic plaintiff here or anything like that. But to say, well, this person was in your treatment or in your care, they did something awful, and therefore we need to hold you accountable, then you're not going to have a lot of folks that want to treat people that have the worst kind of mental health issues. That's just the truth. They'll say it's not worth it. I can treat other folks that aren't quite as severe, and the most severe cases won't get treatment. And those people will just be going about doing their thing, and I think we're worse off for that. I don't think we want that because, frankly, and again, I've seen some of this stuff up close and personal. When folks have very serious mental health challenges, they can be dangerous. And if not properly diagnosed and treated and cared for, then they can hurt other people quite easily. And that's the difficulty here is there are a lot of us who, neurotypical, whatever you want to call us, who aren't exposed to this stuff regularly. And so it shocks us when we hear about it. But this is real. This happens frequently. And making sure that we have the best paradigm in place to get people the treatment they need. And we can't just say mental health, mental health, mental health. We've got to actually know what we mean, know what we're looking for. And this is where some of the information about these folks gives researchers and other folks who look at these issues a profile to say, hey, here's where we need to look. Here's how we need to pay attention. And I understand red flag laws, things like that are not wildly popular in the state of Tennessee. And they probably shouldn't be as a default because they can be abused. They can be set up in ways that aren't respectful of the Second Amendment. But I do think having a conversation of, well, what if somebody's in treatment, they're getting black label psychotropic drugs? It may not be the drugs that creates the problem, but there's an underlying problem for which drugs that powerful are indicated. What about then? In that, just that specific case, is that one where we say, hey, temporarily, we want to petition a court to remove your right to gun possession? Now, some folks will just say, no, that's never okay. I would say in that kind of context, that's probably warranted. I'd at least have the discussion. I don't think it should be, well, you know, my grandma says I'm crazy. That's probably not enough. But in the discrete case of somebody that has drugs that are given a black box safety warning to treat an underlying condition that's a severe mental condition, maybe. I don't think that's too reasonable. But I think it's at least something that we should discuss. I've got Clint from Nashville on the line. Clint, we've got about a minute or two, but I want to get to you. What you got, Clint?
Thank you for taking my call. Can you hear that? I got a couple of comments. I guess we need agency accountability and communication. That's one thing we need.
Sure.
I'm trying to be real quick with that. But another thing with the labels, it affects medications affect people differently.
They do.
And that's the one thing I was taking something about a decade ago or so with my doctor just for sleep, and it affected me really badly. And I was like, no, I can't take this. I told my doctor, and he didn't tell me anything about it was an off-label kind of reason for sleep. But I really wanted to talk about was a previous caller when he said you hear people talk about the need for military weapons or military-style weapons.
Right.
Nothing in our Constitution, Bill of Rights has anything to do with the need. And when they talk about that, the weapons that the military gets are weapons that are the lowest bidder, basically. Have to meet certain specifications and everything. But if you look at the history of weapons, civilian versions are higher price, higher quality, all that stuff. I'm a 22-year veteran getting ready to retire soon. And, the fact that full auto, okay, I'd love to have it. I don't really necessarily need it. My nephew was firing an AR the other day, didn't have a bump stock, didn't have an auto sear, but just the way he held held it loosely, it looked like it was a fully auto, but it was a single, semi-automatic. It's just we've already got a pre NFA 1986 pre-ban where you can't have it unless it's pre-1986 an automatic weapon. Again, like I said, I can't say enough. We don't need to justify a need.
Right.
I mean, that's just a ridiculous argument in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the call, Clint. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think Clint's on to something that when, and I call this the scary gun problem, because the previous caller had mentioned Call of Duty. Okay, one, that's a video game. Yes, they have realistic weapons in that game, firearms in that game. But if you look at a lot of AR-style builds that are just purely semi-automatic component system firearms, they're just scary guns. Like they're scary looking. Whereas the same exact mechanism, caliber, everything, with a wood stock and a bolt action, it might look really pretty. And so some people like pretty guns, but not scary guns, and that has no meaning whatsoever for the Second Amendment. And I think, and I've gone to gun ranges and fired fully automatic firearms. I hate them personally because keeping anything trained and trying to hit a target when that thing's going wild, okay. I like to be able to fire accurately. So I love a bolt action rifle. That's what I hunt with. That's what I like to fire. And something that I got a round at a time. I'm taking my time and I hit the mark. The idea of, now I will say it is sort of relaxing to fire a fully automatic firearm. It's just kind of fun at the range, but it's just, for somebody like me, just not practical. But I think this notion of, well, these are these scary guns and we've got all this problem is just a bit too much. That's not a thing. Just because something looks aggressive does not have any bearing on the Second Amendment. We got to take a break right now, and I got a treat for y'all. Y'all are going to have to, towards the end of this hour, y'all are just going to need to go ahead, take a bathroom break, because I got something that's going to blow your socks off, and you're going to laugh your head off and might actually pee yourself. And so I need you to take that potty break right now. Can I get a verification that that's the case?
It's pretty good. I quite enjoyed it.
It's pretty good. So we'll take a break. Amy, I see you. We'll get to Amy on mental health issues, and then we'll wrap it up and then get to the final hour. This is Super Talk 99.7.
Populations of animals. I mean, think about the white-tailed deer and how when Ed started, and maybe even before Ed a little bit, they started, working to bring these populations back. And now we have these sustainable populations that we can hunt.
Yeah.
The story of the eastern wild turkey and what's happening with turkeys. So I would consider all these things great successes. The conservation efforts that have been worked on by the personnel for years, I would think that it's a great success story for our state.
You're going to see some footage from an old film that was produced here at the agency in the Game and Fish days, and which shows some things like, the wife taking care of the animal that the officer, the husband, had to bring home to take care of, because they got a call, and times have changed. Now we have the rehabilitators that help out with that kind of thing. And
thank goodness. We got to be really good friends with some of those little animals. And got my first commission in 1972.
Okay, yeah.
At that time, it was a little different. The whole law enforcement world was different then. Yep. So anyway, we got the first commission in 1972 and worked all over the state. It was really great to be able to do that. Pretty much, you had one uniform. I noticed in the movie too, everybody wearing ties. For years and years, you had to, if you wore a long sleeve shirt, you had to wear a tie. It didn't matter if you were doing enforcement or sailing a pond or whatever you were doing, you had that tie on.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And then everybody looked forward. There was one date, and it kind of moved. It was generally around April the 1st. You switched from long sleeves to short sleeves, and you didn't have to wear a tie. And everybody's going, come on, April 1st.
the next episode of the Chris Hand Show is happening right now. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm going to get to Amy real quick. We don't have much time, but I want to make sure that Amy gets her time on the air. Amy, what are you thinking?
Hey, Cameron. So my background is in mental health. I have a degree in counseling and I'm just about finished with a master's in counseling.
Okay.
My brother, several of my relatives are counselors or work for community mental health agencies. We have a problem where if you go to a judge and you tell that judge, we've got a client who has threatened to kill himself or threatened to kill someone else, we have an epidemic also of judges who just flat out refuse. If that person has came across their desk more than once or twice, they get fed up and they won't issue the middle inquest petitions, which is absolutely. One particular case that I can give you some vague information on is there's a judge in Kentucky. This guy has threatened to kill himself, threatened to kill everybody in his community, in his area. He's got severe mental illness. And he goes unmedicated. And when he goes on these unmedicated rants, he'll threaten to kill everybody. And he is dangerous. He is homicidal and suicidal. And we have a particular judge that just within the last 6 or 7 weeks has refused multiple times for the community mental health agency there in Kentucky to issue the mental inquest warrant. As of this week, they had to go to court with this same guy because he physically came after the therapist for the therapist that comes out and sees him. It is such a broken system, and when we got rid of asylums, we really did away with a necessary evil of mental health. And yes, it needed to be revamped, and we had a lot of abuse going on in that. But
yeah, I think we need
had a terrible situation.
I think we need to talk about that, Amy. I really appreciate the call. I think she makes a great point. We need to talk about institutions and what we're dealing with there. I've got something to lighten the mood, though. We've been on some heavy topics. These are tough. I've got one to lighten the mood, and I'm telling you, you are going to love it. Come back for the final hour of the Chris Hand Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Still some brake tapping going on 24 westbound south of downtown. They have moved that crash there at Briley Parkway or just beyond Briley Parkway off to the shoulder. So all 4 lanes are open, but you still have to get over to make sure there's plenty of room there for the responders. So it's moving a little bit faster, but still backed up. Right now in Middle Tennessee, there are life-threatening injuries involved in a home explosion in Gallatin. Channel 4 says it happened this morning. Images from the scene showing nothing but debris is all that is left of a structure where officials say at least one person was injured. Here in Nashville, a court filing says a former Metro Police lieutenant is the source of a leak of documents from Covenant school shooter Audrey Hale. News 2 says Lieutenant Alfredo Aravallo claims he handed a hard drive containing the Covenant investigative case file to former Lieutenant Garrett Davidson to place in a safe located in his office, and that Lieutenant Davidson is the only person who had the key to the safe. Tennessee Star editor Michael Leahy claims the newspaper received documents from a source close to the Covenant investigation and has been publishing these documents. Nashville Chancellor Aisha Miles has ordered Leahy to court on Monday to explain how publishing documents from the leak is not a reason for contempt of court proceedings. As for former Lieutenant Davidson, he is the whistleblower who filed a 61-page complaint against the Metro Nashville Police Department, including allegations of efforts to scrap the Community Oversight Board and its investigative powers. And the Supreme Court in our nation's capital has ruled along ideological lines against an ATF ban on bump stocks. These are devices that allow a semi-automatic gun to fire off multiple rounds with a single pull of the trigger. So bump stocks, legal again. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
We're entering the final countdown of the Chris Hand Show. The last hour. We've got to lighten the mood. At some point, maybe we need to change some of Chris's bumpers to like Enya or Sinead O'Connor or even Justin Bieber.
I don't know, man. These hit too hard.
They're good. They're good, but I'm just saying, how fun would it be for Chris to come back and
not know, and it opens up to...
These are Taylor Swift bumpers. What's happening here?
This isn't Dan, man. This is show.
What's going on?
Hold on here.
Okay. So we've talked about covenant shooter issues, mental health issues, some of the challenges. Amy, before we went to the break, raised the challenge of, well, what if you're raising these issues to a judge and a judge is basically ignoring you? I think that's a bigger problem because there are some people with some mental health challenges that are a safety threat to themselves or others. And we got rid of the insane asylums. We don't want to institutionalize folks. I think that's a very wise approach. However, there's got to be a place for some of those folks to be that they won't hurt themselves or others. That's just the truth. And I'm not talking about like a temporary inpatient stay. I'm talking about someone has some of these challenges over a long period of time and needs to be in a place where they're not going to hurt themselves or other people. I think that's a discussion we need to have. It's certainly an uncomfortable one, But I think that we need to figure that part out because it does matter. So without further ado, and I warned you, I told you I had something funny for you. AI, we've talked about it. We think more like Terminator. We think this is coming. It's going to put a lot of people out of work. It's going to save, it's going to save some time, but man, it's very concerning. The machines becoming self-aware. We all grew up on Terminator. We saw this and we were like, this is really bad. We don't want to have a nuclear event where the machines come after us. Well, after I heard this the other day, and it applies to AI to music, particularly country music. And in the heart of country music here in Nashville, I think this is relevant. And this is one, I'm going to let you listen to it. This is what I heard.
I got beer in my boots, dirt on my truck, corn on my mind, and a gun up my butt. It's a small town. At least there's dirt, at least there's beer and trucks and shirts. Beer and trucks, dirt kicks up. Guns in box, big red cups, dirty boots, dirty beer, dirty butts. Let's all cheer. Oh, the beer is fresh, the trucks get mud, the guns are loud, the butts are proud. Got a beer on my plate, a biscuit in my boot, the gun in my butt, and the truck gets true.
All right. I think you get the idea. AI not coming for us. Not right now.
I mean, as long as it's being fed stuff like this to produce, I think we'll be okay.
And I got to be honest, folks, you need to keep that gun out of your butt.
Yeah. Don't be flooding your car with beer. It's probably not for the best.
No. But what's interesting, this is Beats by AI. It's a TikTok channel, and I came across it, and I was like, what is happening? And it's just asking AI to generate songs based on certain criteria.
Not just songs, hit country songs.
Hit country songs. And for some reason, I don't know what it was pulling from. It was just the gun in the butt. And I'm sorry, my mom would not be proud of me highlighting that. But I wanted to bring a little levity in. And two, this goes to the absolute nutty culture that we're in right now, where that kind of stuff is just flooding everywhere. We've got all these different pieces. And we're like, well, AI generated. Every company has an AI thingy. And I'm a little concerned that our tech reliance, that there's nobody manning the control board. And we can talk about the social media companies and their desire to make money, but I really feel like it's kind of a wasteland right now. I know Chris talks about this, so I kind of wanted to piggyback off of it, that we're really in our tech reliance and all the screens and everything. It's starting to make us weird. This connects with the other stuff we were talking about too with Audrey Hale. I mean, we get isolated. We're not having connection points with other people. I see it with kids right now that if you give them a screen, it tranquilizes them. They turn into a little zombie. And with my boys, we've been talking about it. Okay, how do we allocate this? And even with, well, if you do your chores and you do your schoolwork and you do all the things you're supposed to do, well, then maybe you can play some video games. Well, the problem with that model is that it teaches them that the reward is the fantasy. And I'll be honest, as a parent, I've just really battled this because, and I'm sure a lot of you feel this too, is the hypocrisy. You've got a phone attached to your hand. I try to convince myself it's for work. And then I find myself doom scrolling. My wife challenged me, and she and I both took Facebook off our phones. I put a 30-minute timer on Instagram because I like to take pictures. I'm a photography junkie. I think it's fun. And that's how I share kind of what's going on with our extended family that's not in town. But what I was realizing when I was looking at my phone and looking at my kids' phones, and then, actually I asked folks at church and other places, how much time are you spending on this? 4 hours, 6 hours. Some of the kids, 10 hours on their phones. And when you start looking at all the statistics, it's just mind-boggling at how much this has just created a literal alternative reality. And that goofy song we played is evident that there is no artist there. It is just a computer program creating a thing that, let's be honest, other than the part about the guns and butts, it sounds like a ton of hit country songs.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds eerily familiar for sure.
Right. And it's catchy. And even with the dumb lyrics, I'm still like it's in my head. I'm like, wait a minute.
There's a reason it's listed as a hit country song.
Right.
It's going to stick with you. It's a summer tune for sure.
And that to me is when the computer can basically generate the thing. We don't even need artists. We don't need musicians. We don't need anybody to create anything. It's just this alternative universe that can perpetuate itself, and that we feel like this is my bigger concern is right now when I talk to Alexa at home, and those of you who are at home, your Alexas are now activated. It's not a great experience. It's just sort of clunky.
Yeah.
You can play music, do other things. I don't feel like I'm having a conversation with that device, right? With the advent of AI, people are going to feel like they're having conversations with another human, and it's going to fool them into thinking I'm relationally connected.
Yeah.
I'm building this.
I mean, they made a whole movie off of it with Joaquin Phoenix, that movie Her. It's played. It's Scarlett Johansson playing the AI, but it's just him and an AI, and it goes through the whole movie of them. He's thinking that he's making a full relationship with her in this whole thing. It's
concerning because it's not. It is the perception that it is. Sort of like what we did with all our friends. I've got 4,000 friends. I've got 5,000 contacts. Do you really? No. I mean, how many of those people, when you need, you're broke down on the side of the road at 2 a.m., are you calling and be like, can you come get me? That there's not that many of those. And that's something that I'm trying to explore with what I write over at the Tennessee. I'm trying to understand, how do we push back on this? Because this is starting to get nuts. I mean, truly nuts. And I'm seeing people that are sick. And what I mean by that is they've deluded themselves into believing that their digital world and social media and all of that is the real world. And that's where they spend most of their time, because the real world is difficult. You don't get instant likes from the real world. I don't even get it from talk radio. I mean, I get you guys. The thing that I love about having this engagement is, yes, Sandra, this is a lighter conversation. I'm sorry, I'm a talk radio guy, so I could do the funny song for a minute, but then we got to get into the things. And I think that this is something that we've got to figure out. Like, we've got to have an answer here. And I know so many parents are trying to figure this out. There's all kinds of different softwares. And my answer is just put them outside and lock the door and say, y'all go have fun. Now, they came back the other day and they were covered head to toe in mud. I'm talking caked on mud. They break stuff all the time because they're inventing things. And that's the way I think it should be. Now, as a parent, that's a hassle. They're like, Dad, can we do this? Can we do that? And the answer needs to be, yeah. I was tired yesterday, and my oldest was like, Dad, can we throw the baseball? And the answer is yeah. That means I need to get over it and get out there and throw the baseball. And I've had my shoulder rebuilt. My arm does not love throwing a baseball, but I do love my son. And so spending that time, there's no substitute for human interaction. And I think that's something we got to relearn. COVID made us weird. I don't care how you feel about the mask or the vaccines or all that. That wasn't the part that made us weird. It was the lack of human interaction. That for an extended period of time, those relationships, we weren't around people that we were normally around. And we've got to figure out how to get back to that. We've got to figure out how we help people cope. Life is difficult. There are things that don't go our way. What I've seen with kids, and I coach kids, I love the kids that are out there on the football field, on the wrestling mat, that I work with. One of the things that I've seen consistently over the last several years in looking at kids that are my son's age is a lack of resilience. And what I mean by that is when bad things happen or when they're put up against a challenge, they just lose it. That they can't figure it out. Why, this thing is hard. You're making me wrestle and I'm sweating and I don't like it. We're doing conditioning for football. I don't like it. Why? Why do I notice the difference in resilience? The difference in resilience is there because there's instant gratification in digital reality. It's dopamine hit over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and it doesn't stop. Doesn't matter what it is. We don't care. It's not like high quality content or what any of that. It's just dopamine hits. And we get that instant gratification. Well, guess what? If you want to be good at football, you got to do a lot of things you don't want to do over a long period of time to get there. Same with most sports. Same with work in an office. And that's where I'm very concerned that this digital culture is going to produce people with mental health deficiencies. The studies are already out there. And the one thing that I would implore you is to, if nothing else, evaluate that thing in your hand and how you use it. I want to talk a little bit more about sort of what my family's doing, get y'all's feedback. Hit me up on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chris Hand Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
TBI and ATF investigating a home explosion in Gallatin this morning, and still slow going westbound 24 trying to get to downtown Nashville. That's because of a right shoulder there being blocked by a crash just before Briley Parkway. Now we got a new crash, this one in Montgomery County, blocking the left lane of eastbound 24 at Rossview Road. Again, the top stories coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hurtling through the last hour of the Chris Hand Show, I'm Cameron Smith. At D Cameron, D as in David, Cameron Smith on X. I love it when you guys join the conversation over there. It's a little hard for me to keep up with it during the show, but that's where I throw up a lot of my writing and have those conversations. And hashtag TN Politics. I'm going to get you guys to do this at some point. But if you got something to say or something worth people taking note of in the political conversation in Tennessee, hashtag TN Politics. Give it a shot. So we're talking about just sort of the plight of parents right now of trying to deal with the culture. I don't know a better way to say it, but we've got to get off the screen addiction. I looked at my phone. Now granted, I've been on the air with you guys, so I haven't looked at it a lot, but 15 minutes today. My goal for myself with work and everything, keep it under 2 hours. There's a lot of the research and a lot of the stuff that you'll see based on screen engagement. If you can keep it under that 2 hour threshold, and I'm talking total, I'm not talking about one app, social media, anything like that. It's altogether under 2 hours, then, you're doing okay. When you start looking at 4, 6, 8, 10 hours a day, wow. And I'm telling you, I'm imploring you actually, if you've got a kid with a phone, today, it's a Friday, it's the summer, when you see them, just say, hey, do you mind if I see how much screen time? Wait till after dinner and say, hey, I just want to kind of see how much screen time that you've had and kind of what you're doing with your time. You guys are going to be shocked at how hooked in these programs, these phones are. And it is not healthy. It is not good. It is not good for our kids. It's not good for us. And I see you 8602 with your flip phone. I love that. I think that's great. The way that my wife and I have decided we're going to do it, because we were talking about just going out for family time, whether it's going to the park or going to dinner or whatever we're doing as a family, just having one phone that goes with us. Everybody else leaves their devices at home. And that way, we have a stripped down device that has a number that we don't give out. So family could reach us. If we had to call out for something, we could, but there's nothing on it. To just try to give us some breathing room and some space, because it's everywhere. It's constant. And I get bumped and bipped and poked by all the apps saying, well, you need to update this. You need to do this. Don't worry, your streak will end, or this or that. It's all designed to put you on a treadmill of nothing. And that's the biggest conversation that I'm having with my boys right now is, do you really, it dawned on my 15-year-old who's learning to drive. He wanted to spend some of the money that he's made mowing lawns on a driving setup for his video games. And I'm like, you want a driving setup when you're learning to drive a car. Why don't you just learn to drive the car in real life? Wouldn't that be better? Again, let's have that conversation. I want to hear what you guys are doing to address some of this stuff. We've got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chris Hand Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Now we got a brand new crash affecting 24. This one is eastbound in Montgomery County. Left lane is blocked there at Rossview Road. Still trying to recover from a crash earlier this morning. Westbound 24 south of downtown Nashville. That still has the right shoulder blocked before Briley Parkway. TBI and ATF investigating a home explosion in Gallatin this morning. Channel 4's Michael Warwick at the scene.
People living in this community are really shaken up by this home explosion. That home, which was a duplex, has been reduced to a pile of wood and bricks. There's debris that's on rooftops around here. And speaking to people in this community, they can't believe that nobody died on impact here. We do know the one person inside that home was seriously burned and hurt when this home exploded just south of downtown Gallatin.
And officials believe the explosion was caused by a natural gas leak. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Well, today I'm fancy like Chris Hand, who is not here, but has graciously allowed me to spend some time with his audience. And you guys have been great. I appreciate the idea that some jobs, property management, Sandra mentioned that, there are some jobs where having that phone is reality. And I'm not arguing about work use of your phone. You got to do your emails. You got to, whatever your messaging thing is, Slack or however that works, totally fine. But it's the overall time. It's paying attention to what you're consuming. And what I've had to realize is that you can live in the digital wonderland. You can literally stay there all the time. You can have Grubhub bring you food. You can have DoorDash bring you dinner. You've got all these companies that will surround your digital safety net so that you don't actually have to do anything. And that's what's terrifying. And you can say, well, I'm doing good things. A couple of y'all have mentioned, well, I listen to podcasts. Okay, cool. Matt and I are about to do our own podcast. We're very excited about that. I'm not arguing that these are all bad things. It's the overall volume. Because if you crowd out, let's just say you're awake 12 hours. Okay? That's 7 to 7. Maybe I'll give you 15. Some of y'all are late night owls. Think about how much time that you're spending consuming other stuff. I would just commend to you, and this is where working at Thanks has really kind of shifted my brain on this stuff of, are you building relationships? Are you constantly looking at the value of your, well, in that context, professional relationships, but larger personal relationships? Are you investing in people? Are you meeting them for coffee? Are you doing the things that we couldn't do during COVID? Or are you just continuing the same practices of not engaging? And if you're not engaging people, then you have a problem. And that's what I've realized with my kids is I used to hang out with my friends. We used to go to places and do things. And now a lot of that's gone away. It's like, well, we texted. I'm like, dude, I've seen your text chain. You just say, bro, sup. Like, that's not a substitute. It's not the same. And that's where we are. That's what we've had to deal with. And so you got to reverse that trend intentionally. So rather than looking at your phone and saying, I've been on this thing for 6 or 8 hours, say, what time did I dedicate to relationships and people?
Yeah, like I live with, there are 5 people in my house that we live all together. I think majority of our conversations take place over text or like Instagram or something like that. And so the other night I was like, you know what? I haven't sat down and talked with you guys in so long. So we all went, there's a local mini golf place out in Murfreesboro that we go to. It's $6 per person just to go around the course as many times as you want. Went there and we just had a good time, just hanging out, talking, laughing.
And that's so critical.
And it it was great. It was probably one of the best nights we've had in a while hanging out together. And it was because we weren't on our phones just talking to each other through that. It was actually engaging with each other and like laughing and whatnot.
And I think that's the lie, right? The lie is we're all connected. This is helping us bring the world together. We're so close. No, you're not. That's the lie. Is if your relationship is based on text, it is based on social media, you don't have what you think you have. Go and do. And this is a fair question, 7741. What if you're a super introvert? Hate being around people and I don't enjoy it. Okay, that's fair. Let's try one. You don't have to go with a huge group. Let's go a one-off. Go to a book club. Go do something that might not scare you. It's okay to be challenged. You don't have to overwhelm yourself, but that's what we have to do. You want to know the truth? I'm kind of that way. If you ask my family, I don't say much at home because I have to say much the rest of the time. And so in my personal life, I definitely am more reserved. It is draining in some respects to do a lot of things I do. And so when I'm in my personal time, I kind of just like it quiet. And that's okay. But try to push yourself a little bit on this. If you're an introvert and you say, I can't do it at all, try one person. If you're, I hang out with, my mom hangs out with Ruthie. Ruthie's her best friend, been her best friend for 100 years. They eat lunch all the time. And it's great. And that's what you do with your best friend. But are you going to do things with other friends? Are you going to, I met this person. Let me follow up with them. Those are all really healthy, positive things that we can do that we forget. We say, what's your what's your Instagram? Give me your text number. We'll use that text number to say, hey, can we grab coffee? There's more coffee in the Middle Tennessee area than probably Columbia. I mean, it is where my office is in Franklin, there are 8 coffee shops in walking distance. There are plenty of places to sit down and talk to somebody. And I'd really just recommend doing that. And that we have to push back against the COVID habits. We just have to. And have to say, please, let's do something. It doesn't have to be all the time, but and you can get into paralysis by analysis. You get into this planning thing. Well, we have to plan it. No, you don't have to plan a big thing. You just got to go do something. I'm telling you, breaking bread is great. A campfire is great. Heck, you can set a sofa on fire and gather around it. It doesn't really matter. Like, find some time to spend with other people. And, what if they won't like me? What if they... These are all the things people have dealt with for all of human history. It's totally okay. You don't need to go pre-screen people. Like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you couldn't pre-screen anyone. You just had to see whether you liked them or not by hanging out with them. Now that's a radical idea. That's why we have so many Looney Tunes in politics, is because people pre-screen and they're like, if you're not a card-carrying conservative, I'm not going to hang out with you. Well, if you're not a progressive Democrat, you're just knuckle-dragging idiot. And so they don't, and then they just keep on assuming their priors about everybody that's not the same as them. And so I'm just encouraging you to try those things. And some of you reach out to me. You can at D. Cameron Smith and say, hey, can we grab coffee? And I grab coffee with folks. I can't do it with everybody all the time, but some people some of the time is great because I want to know you guys too. I know Matt and Chris and other folks, that's important. I don't want to just talk about things. I want to know who you are and then engage. Great call by 2531. The parks are free. Go for a hike. There are waterfalls all over the place. If you've never been to Cummins Falls, go check it out. Rock Island, fantastic. There are plenty of places to go. And if you go to them, you might find you have a good time. I mean, Rock Island is tons of fun. And I've done that for years. And I think that's where we start losing, right? That's where we start having a problem, is when we just tell ourselves we can't do that. That seems like too much of an effort. 8041 said, like going to the strip club. That's for some people. That's a communal experience. I would argue that this is a good one. This is why movies aren't a great date, is because same thing with strip club, oddly. you're focused on something other than the people you're there with. So, like Mason mentioned, mini golf, great, because you get to talk to people in between things. Golf, regular golf's fine. Go in a foursome and, bring 2 people there, play with 2 people you don't know. That's awesome. And I think that's the shocking thing that people have forgotten how to do. I watch people struggle, and frankly, younger folks who had their formative years in that COVID era, and or even school coming out, and now they're trying to figure out, well, how do I build business relationships? How do I network? Network is a lost art. You know what network is? Hi, I'm Cameron. How are you? Oh, hey, let's talk. Let's see what you're interested in. Let's figure out how I can know you. And I think that, to me, here's one from 5410. Go check out the Walls of Jericho on the Alabama-Tennessee line. It's beautiful. Great. You know what else is great? Matt and I rib each other. He's a Georgia fan. I'm an Alabama fan. I know a lot of y'all are Tennessee fans. There's like probably 3 or 4 of y'all that are Vanderbilt fans. And just the exchange there of hanging out with people who like college football. It's great. And that's the reason I don't bring up the Nolensville Stars and youth football just because it's so much fun. It is, but it's because that's a connection point, right? Some of your kids are playing for the Cowboys or the Brentwood Blaze or, the Mount Juliet. I think they're the Bears. And that means something to you. That's a connection point. And so when we find these, it's awesome. You guys are funny. 7464. No, I did not say get 2 people you don't know and have a threesome. I said it's golf and there's a foursome and you bring 2 and there's 2 people there. Y'all can get crazy. Y'all are getting crazy. Maybe there's 5 Vandy fans. I want Clark Lee to do it well over there, so I'm rooting for Vanderbilt, but it's tough sledding right now. And if you take your time, you go check these things out, you might find that you actually enjoy it and that the people are not all terrible like they are on the internet. Because you want to know a little secret? In real life, people behave better. They'll talk to you and they'll be kind to you to start off with, where on the internet, they'll punch you in the face first and then try to work their way from there. That's not a great way to build relationships. We got to take a break. We're winding it down. This is the Chris Hand Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7. Well, I want to be a cowboy, baby. It's been fun on the Chris Hand Show. My friend and Georgia Bullfrogs fan, Matt Murphy, is here with us. Matt, yeah. What?
Hello.
Yeah, you got something in your throat?
Frog in my throat.
Frog for the Bullfrogs.
Whatever. Are you getting salty already?
I'm salty. Well,
Bama fans are so salty because they have no Lord Saban to bow down before.
We don't.
In advance of the football season, and you don't know what's going to happen with this guy. You want to believe that the Bama tradition will reign, but you know what happened after the Bear left. You know that the dark times. There was one little blip with Gene Stallings cheating, and then and then it went down the hill again. And then remember Mike Price?
Who?
It's rolling, baby.
We
anyway.
Yes, we do. But Pac-12 to SEC, that's just a tough transition.
He's been a winner everywhere he's went.
That's true.
I think he'll be fine. I do think that. Did you see where? Oh, by the way, hello.
Hey,
how's it going? I know we're not a sports show or whatnot, but did you see where Jake Coker, like championship winning quarterback Jake Coker, predicted 9 wins, and Bama fans just lost their minds on him?
I mean, pretty soon you're just on the way to Vanderbilt. You need to be careful there.
and his point was, he said, one, it's a tough schedule.
It is.
Number 2, it's a brand new coach. I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer is not going to be a great coach, but transitioning into a new system is always a difficult transition, particularly when you had a guy there for the length of time that Nick Saban was there. It's just, he
tough.
said, I don't think a 9-3 season is a total, just freak out issue if that's what happens. But
if you want to be great, you got to freak out.
But people still freaked out.
So what do you got on the deck for your show?
No. I don't want. Do we have time? Jay's back there. Mason, hold the music. I got something to say to you.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Chris isn't here. What's he going to do? And whose time are we encroaching on?
I don't know.
My time. So it's okay.
You don't want me to? Okay, go ahead.
No. What time is it?
It is.
It's 11:55. Hold the music.
Hey.
What's everybody looking at me funny for?
You're calling me out and doing my job.
No, everybody's like, look, Jay's looking at me funny. Bell's looking at me funny. Mason's
That's just the way Bell looks.
I want to. What's up with Nolensville changing the names of your? I mean, what was wrong with Nolensville Panthers?
Nothing.
What? Why did you?
So we
the
switched,
stars mean nothing.
It's better than the unicorns. We shifted from the TNYFL to TISA, which is a new league, and we wanted to more closely align with Nolensville High School and sort of their colors and everything. And so the football board decided that we were going to switch.
What is this, junior high, middle school? What is this?
It's youth, so I guess 6U through 12U.
Oh, so the high school team has always been the Stars?
No, they're the Knights, but we have the same alignment. But hey, you know what? That's trademarked. So
why don't you call yourself the Squires?
This is.
I mean,
that seems obvious. I like that one. Nobody asked me. My youngest son, who will be 10U Triple B, said, "Well, at least it's not the unicorns." And
that's true.
So that was his takeaway.
Or the donkeys.
You got to play ball, man. You got to play ball.
Okay. Well, all right. That answers that.
Okay.
Thank you. Asked and answered.
Okay.
Coming up on the show, we're going to review some of the Supreme Court stuff. Jay St. Clair is going to be with us at the 1 o'clock hour for Friday. No Friday Mac Attack. We have to figure out how to fill that hole, avoid in our lives, and we'll make do until 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, that sounds great, man. You think he'll call in, Mac, at any time? You think we could get him periodically?
He canceled on us this week, so he's a little dead to me.
That's fair.
I was like, I'm no replacement, but I mean, I could try and come up with sports talk.
Friday Mason Attack doesn't have the same ring to it.
Doesn't hit the same now.
Monday Mason Madness.
Oh, now we're talking. Oh, also, there's a Lindnig Library at Cordell Hall. I'm going to talk about that. Okay, go. All right, goodbye.